Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I'm very excited. I have a very interesting and talented individual. She is a certified stress management and health wellness coach. Before becoming a stress disruptor and joy seeker, she spent over 18 years as an HR professional. By combining both HR experience and her coaching experience, she has uniquely positioned to help individuals feel energized and work and in life while managing stress more effectively. After her own challenges with stress, where she jokes that she did it all wrong and she couldn't do it right, she discovered the baby steps that will take you to the mountain. So I'll let her talk a little bit more about herself. So without further ado, please welcome Eileen Murphy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about my background, but also just, have a good conversation about stress because we all got it.
Of course, thank you for joining us. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get into this field. It's very similar to mine and I get very geeky. So like why stress management, especially from HR to that? Tell us a little bit like how that went down.
Yeah, it is a big joke. I always tell people I stressed really well. I did everything wrong until I figured out how to do it right. And being in HR, you are in such a different position within the organization. You're neutral between the business and employees. So you have kind of everyone coming to you for all sorts of problems. I saw firsthand across the organization at all levels what stress can do, what toxic environments can do. But then in my own life, taking on those conversations and just getting into allowing that self-talk and that narrative to consume me just got me into a really bad stress pattern. And it hit the ceiling when I got really sick, all sorts of bodily things going wrong, brain fog, major tension, stomach problems. And I just finally said I had enough. I need to realize like I am the problem. Totally sound like Taylor Swift right now, but that's fine. I'm a Swiftie. I really had to admit that, yeah, I was the problem. And what are some small steps I can take to go just reduce that stress? And lo and behold, all of that just led me into a deeper conversation with myself about why I got into HR and am I even doing what I wanted to do when I got into HR? And the answer was as much joy as it was. I wasn't living the expectations that I wanted when I went in and got a master's in IO psych and got into HR. And so, yeah, I just took a couple months, like 6 months to really explore. And I realized it's these one-on-one conversations, giving people space to talk, listening to them, challenging that thought process, and helping them find a path forward that fits their needs, that will work for them. And it just naturally so happens that's an actual field called coaching. From there, it was I love career. Like I spent my life dedicated to professionals and I didn't want to give that up. I love that pursuit of careers and where people want to take their livelihood, but I just couldn't do it on the org side. I needed to do it on the individual side. And with that, kind of got into the health and wellness because I feel like I know the business side. I've done it for 20 some years almost. But I really just wanted to do the more fun side of, well, we bring our whole selves to work. That means your health and wellness, your work and life. And so that's why I went into the health and wellness space. And then out of that, realize what I really love is stress because I'm so bad at doing it that I've now learned so much about how to do it better. And I want to share that so people can stress better.
I like that. So you can stress better because one of the misconceptions that people tell me is you're getting rid of somebody's stress. And I was like, you can't really get rid of stress. You can stress better and learn how to manage your stress, but there's different stressors in that you're going to be facing. Some are positive and some are negative. And an abundance of it is where it starts getting a little bit on the toxic side and can lead to burnout.
Yes, that totally resonates. You can't make people stress less. I know people are like, oh, stress relief. And I'm like, but it's not relief. It's realizing that we have way more options than just this fight, flight, or freeze mode. There are so many other possibilities, and it is so easy for us to stay in this. I feel like it's a stress response, right? It's
Yeah.
like that old system. And I'm like, I'm trying to help people upgrade, like on your computer where your computer's, I need to upgrade the system. I'm trying to help people upgrade that to realize there are all these other ways that we could approach a stressful situation before, during, and after. And it is all that awareness. It all starts with awareness and mindset, right? Those two things, chicken or the egg kind of situation there.
No, yeah, definitely. And it can get very heavy for those people who don't really know about the good stressors, the bad stressors, and they just let it consume them. And I think that's when they start feeling lost. They feel like unmotivated. They feel like tired. Like for you, you mentioned a couple of the small signs that your body tells you when you feel like an abundance of stress. Can you tell us a little bit more about what are some other indicators that when someone has stress and how they feel?
Yeah, please don't let it get to the screaming point that that I allowed my body to get to. And I do it. This is like the first phase I really walk clients through is just where do you notice stress? Because it's your brand. What's your stress brand? Is the question I ask. Because we all experience it differently. So it can be you're in your head. The spectrum is like daydreaming, you're absent, you're not even like present in the moment, to you're overthinking, you're downward spiraling. I'm a worsifier. I can find like the worst situation out of the smallest thing. And then just that the vagus nerve, it wanders all the way down, and that's just follow that path. And that's where your stress is also going to lie. Do you have tension and tightness in your throat, your heartbeat, your stomach? Is it butterflies and woozy? Are you literally sick to your stomach? Are you getting sick? Have to use you have urgency to go to the bathroom, sweaty palms, all that. So how do you experience stress is such an important piece of the puzzle. Cause for me, it shows up in my overthinking and my stomach. I know right away. Other people have like really good tension in their shoulders, their neck, hips. Oh my gosh. Never knew how much tension I held in my hips until I was able to relax it. And now it's a huge indicator for me if I'm sitting in a conversation, driving my car. I just took a long road trip this weekend. I didn't realize how much like, how stressful it was for me to drive, and so it was like, "Oh, my hips are getting really tense. What's making me nervous? What do I need to do right now? What's the stressor that's, like, causing me this?" Obviously, trucks, and so it was just reminding myself of I've driven by trucks before. It's just been a few years since I've driven this long of a distance, clearly, but just understanding, yeah, where does stress show up for you,
Hmm.
because that helps you go, "Oh, my alarm system's going off. I have a stressor. Now, how do I want it?"
Mm.
It sounds so easy, but building that awareness is the hard part. And sometimes I tell my clients it's totally okay to go backwards. Find a notice at 20 minutes later, 2 days later, as long as you recognize like you missed it, and then bring yourself back of what were those warning signs? Oh yeah, yeah. It was really in my hips or it was really in my shoulders.
Exactly. And it's those little tidbits that you give people that you can't unlearn something. So once you know something, you can't become unaware of it. For example, when I get an extreme amount of stress, I have an anxiety attack, but I start feeling numbness in my fingers. I start feeling numbness in my cheeks. I start feeling like flushed. And all of these little things lead up to the anxiety attack, and it's fail safe. So your body says, if you don't pay attention to this one, the next one's going to happen. And it just, as soon as you catch it, you're like, oh, I know what's going on. So I can like sense an anxiety attack coming a mile away, and I can calm it down before it even starts.
Yeah.
But it's paying attention to those little details.
Yeah. Taking little breaks, tuning into it. And I don't know how it's been for you, but for me, in stressful conversations with leaders or employees, if I start to feel myself getting like really floating into my head and like freaking out, I've learned that it is okay to ask for 5 minutes or a few
Yeah.
minutes. Hey, can I just have a couple seconds here? I need to just reset, reground because I want to be present with you. It's vulnerable to share, like, you're having a moment,
Yeah.
but it's also, like, letting them know it's really important that I'm here, and I think sometimes just giving ourselves that permission to do that is really valuable and something that is also really strange to learn.
Yeah. And it's something that people will be often more willing to accommodate than not, as long as you're honest. One of the things that I always preface when I meet someone new or client, or even like when I used to work for somebody else, was I have ADHD and I can get overstimulated sometimes very quickly. And it's not like it happens every day, but it's just like random effects. Like it could just be like I'm focusing, but then all of a sudden I start processing all of the noise around me. And that's way more important for my brain at this time, that the conversation. So I tell people, hey, can we take like a 10-minute breather so I can recollect myself. I am getting a little overstimulated, and I don't want to disrespect you or your time and waste your time. So, in order for us to use the best use of this time, just give me 5 minutes. Let me go get some air. I'll come back. Go use the restroom, whatever it may be.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah, but I do wanna pick your brain on something, and it's just a recent conversation I literally had yesterday with, some of my colleagues. We were discussing the differences between people who are type A and type B, and there was a misconception that type B individuals don't experience stress because they're so more relaxed, they're more laid back, go with the flow, but I was arguing that type B do experience stress, it just shows in a different way, and it could lead to the type B personality because that's just the way that their personality reacts. So I just want to get your idea, and it doesn't have to be anything, just like what you think about it, like on how working with a type A client versus a type B client and how the stress shows different.
Yeah. I don't know too much about type B personality. Type A, I think we all know a lot about type A's, but what I do know is stress is different for everyone. And there are people who are born with a higher stress tolerance, just like people are born with a higher pain tolerance or higher tolerance for hot and spicy food. And so, yes, it's going to show up differently. What stresses them out, it might actually look really different than what would stress you out or me out. And we're like, wait, how is that really stressful? But they also have a different they see the world and they perceive it in a very different way. And I think it's really important to amplify that and thank them for showing us that there is a different way to stress because I think most of us want to try to lean a little bit more into that easygoing, knowing and trusting that things are just going to work out. But I would agree with you that they are stressy. It looks different. They might carry it in a different way. They also might have just different outlets in which they're expressing it so that it doesn't come out as visibly as a type A. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree. People tend to express it in different ways and do different things that they may not know that may be regulating the stress.
Yes.
So I have a friend who loves to run. All they do is run every single day. If they don't run for at least 15 to 20 minutes a day, they feel that they don't feel like themselves. And it's just like, that's your stress regulating mechanism that you've developed. And they're like, but I'm not stressed. And I was like, because you run every day.
I love that. I really try to work with clients from a holistic perspective. And so I do focus in on stress proofing because that is a way for us to increase our tolerance. So just like your friend, finding activities that are good stress relieving outlets for you do allow you to increase your tolerance. I allow clients to hit up on one or two topics that they want to explore. Diet and exercise, I like to call it nutrition and movement. That gives it a bit more expansive feel for it, are really amazing. But just learning more and more about stress management techniques, I was amazed at how many things I used to do as a kid that I stopped doing because I thought we shouldn't do it anymore as an adult. That actually was like, oh, that's why I was like never stressed at all as a child because I swam all the time. I colored, I had imagination, I daydreamed, I wrote poetry. I would just have a pen and paper next to my bed, and I would just turn over in the middle of the night and start writing poems. And as I got into college and age, it was like, oh, like you shouldn't do that anymore. Like it's really childish. And now I do try to spend some time daydreaming. I do once a quarter. I plan a super fun day just for myself. Maybe some days it's like an hour, but it is just allowing myself to daydream and imagine. And it's just going back to it. There are ways we can increase our stress tolerance, finding ways to do that that really do just give us such a more, yeah, expansive way to handle stress because there's more to us now. We're complex creatures and it gives us a couple layers of complexity.
Yeah, and it is important to get to incorporate rest whenever you can, those days where you are gonna just do nothing, be a couch potato, and know that it's no, you're not being lazy. No, it doesn't make you lesser than, it doesn't make you weak, doesn't make you irresponsible. It is part of the healing process.
It's so interesting that you say that because I think we do have such a strong storyline of we have to be doing and just being is super difficult. And it's one of the hardest storylines I've had to break. And I think you and I spoke about this earlier. I'm second generation And my husband is not, he's 4th or 5th generation, and there's, like, huge difference between how our families approach stuff, and so I do like to always tie in when I talk to just people, I love talking about generational stuff. It is interesting, the generational his family's really able to be and just enjoy, and my family has always been, like, in a survival doing mode. Not sure if you've ever experienced anything like that or thought about that in terms of stress and burnout.
Oh, yeah, culture, generational differences, even where you grew up has a big impact on how you manage stress. Like, for me, my parents immigrated from Mexico, and I'm a first generation Hispanic. It was not even spoke about. Stress was not something that we had the luxury,
Yeah.
as my dad said, to think about. Like, we just kept going, and if, you felt a certain way, then that just means that you're not working hard enough because you're letting your mind think about it. Yeah, so it was very toxic way of, working with that. It's just like you stressed out until your body can no longer handled it. You went into, like, your deathbed, recovered, and then go back.
Yeah, my family was never big on talking about feelings, and it was just really taboo to even express it. So most people in my family think I'm very soft, very woo-woo. It's okay. I think one of the most powerful things I learned in therapy was that humans aren't thinking creatures, we're feeling creatures.
Yeah.
And our reaction to everything is based out of that feeling, the perception of these feelings and the thoughts that we attach to these feelings. And when you talk about feelings, people do tend to have a thinking conversation and this, oh, let's not talk about the rationality of this. Let's just, how are you?
Mhm.
Like when you're in this moment of stress, how do you feel and how do you want to feel? And there doesn't have to be logic. It can just be imagery or words to help build that picture.
Exactly. And the more we think about ourselves as not robots and we're not always going to function 1,000% of the time, the more grace we have for ourselves. And I think that's one word that I consistently tell my clients. You need to have more grace. You need to be forgiving. You need to allow yourself not to be perfect.
Yes. What are some techniques that you've given clients or are some ideas that clients have created for themselves around that, allowing themselves to be imperfect?
For that is I have one activity in where it's like an adaptation to the gratitude journal. One technique is a gratitude journal where I just have them write at least one thing that they're grateful for that happened that day. And it doesn't have to be like specifically that day or that came to mind that day, I should say. And so with that, I also have one thing that they feel didn't go so well. What about it did it feel icky? What was like the yuck? I think I adopt a lot of Gen Z lingo. So it's like, what is your yuck and what is your yum of the day? What is the rose? What is the thorn? Just to make it more thing. So a lot of people are like, my yuck was I didn't get enough done today. And then we have that highlighted. And then I was like, what was the good thing about today? I got out of bed. Okay, perfect. So let's break down that yuck into what are you grateful about that situation? And then they're like, why am I going to be grateful that I didn't get anything done? And I was like, is that something that truly is real or are you overgeneralizing? And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, I did get some things done." Okay, that's too big. What is that something? And then they're like, "I got the laundry done." Okay, anything else? "I got dishes done." Okay. "I actually cleaned the apartment." Okay. "I walked my dog." Okay. And I was like, "These are a lot of things that you did that you dismissed because there's one thing that you didn't get done and you're letting that shadow everything else." So let's be real. So do you got a lot of stuff done? So can we trick that yuck into a yum? And they're like, yeah. So, okay, I did get a lot done today. So it's just like picking that idea and then dissecting it and layering it out. And one of the common things is that people tend to be vague because they're still trying to justify that they didn't do well.
That's really an interesting take. They're being vague because they're justifying what they didn't do. I could sit with that for a while and really noodle on it.
Yeah.
I think it is super powerful, and I'm sure you do this with your clients too, but yeah, when they make a commitment, it if they're like, "I'm gonna do this every day," it's, "Whoa, let's not try that." Because you're just setting yourself up for that heartache of not meeting that expectation. So yeah, I always try to go for the 80% rule. And even within that, look at it from a whole month's perspective versus a weekly perspective, because some weeks are going to be a little bit harder for all the women who are listening. I think we all know that there are just some weeks that we're just not going to be on our A game as much. And giving ourselves that grace to to not show up, or to show up in the way that we actually need versus how the world needs us to show up, is so important. I always like the whole baseball reference is what I always like to talk to my clients about when it comes to imperfection. And I think once people realize that you can be boldly imperfect, that it's like a major stress reliever. It's really beautiful to see once people commit to the fact that perfection is something that is unattainable, and also something that they can define for themselves.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And one thing that helped me that was a big game changer for me and for some of my clients, because a lot of the clients I see typically are people pleasers and they can't really say no. And they feel selfish managing their stress and taking care of their stress. And they feel like they don't have time for it because they're so busy doing other things for other people. And what I told them is your lack of stress management is stressing somebody else out.
Oh, yeah.
You ignoring the habits, the behaviors, the agitations that are caused because of your stress is going to be the stressor that is going to break somebody else out. And I realized that I learned that from my therapist because my old boss never regulated her stress. And because of that, her constant anxiety and like all of her little quirks, and then sometimes it would lash out because of the stress,
Mhm.
caused me to internalize that, stressed my life, my job. And then I now had that. And then I had to regulate it so I didn't pass it on to my employees.
Yes. Which is the hardest part of being a manager, is making sure you don't pass up onto your employees. I should say good managers, because obviously your manager wasn't really aware and attuned to what they were doing. I also had a manager like that, and I hated Mondays. There was a report due by noon every Monday that was really hard to pull together, though it sounded very simple. And like, she would just pace back and forth in front of my queue and then be, like, under her breath, like, saying things. I felt like that job, and it was my 2nd position ever out of college. I felt like that job gave me an ulcer. And it was, like, in that moment of realizing, I don't want that. And so I've never done that, but obviously, I think to your point, I'm sure I stressed people out the way I was stressing and not behaving and treating my stressors, where I just kept saying yes to everything, that then my team felt like they had to say yes to everything. And I love that one of my direct reports told me that. Can we say no once in a while? And it was like, oh yeah, you can. And then like, when she started saying no, then started to say no, because I realized I need to be that for her as well and for the rest of the team. And it was really hard because, yeah, I'm definitely a high achiever. I'm Yeah, on the Enneagram, I'm a type 3, which leans into type 2, which is definitely like high capacity, high achiever. I can do everything. I want to please everyone. And it's just like that tendency is just so unhelpful. And learning my limits has been one of the toughest challenges.
Mhm.
And saying no. Yeah. And now I can say no all the time.
That's important. And then that was my manager's fault is that she could not say no. So this was a respite company and we were essentially we're growing and taking on new clients. And however, there's a moment where you need to say, hey, we reached our plateau based on the staffing that we have. Either we hire someone new to handle the workload before you say yes again. But she was just like, yeah, we can handle it. We can handle it. We can handle it. And we had an abundance of clients and not enough providers. And it was just like, she was getting all pissed off that we couldn't handle it. But it's not our fault. It's the fact that you didn't plan ahead, but it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was definitely something that you have to learn to say no. You have to learn to understand what you're going through and being able to really regulate your feelings, let yourself feel at that moment. That is
Yeah.
something that I struggle with is because of the stress, you push your feelings away and you don't allow yourself to feel what you need to feel in that
Yeah.
moment. Take time to reflect and really experience the here and now.
I feel like the other side that we both been talking about is we were living in their story. I
Mhm.
love talking a lot about stories and limiting beliefs. I use them interchangeably, but in both our scenarios, like we were living within their stress story.
Yeah.
And it took us out of our own way of wanting to be with our work and our balance, our life. And it's that awareness, that reflection reminds us of, oh, that's for you to deal with. And that has nothing to do with me. And this is like the wall, or I use a visualization that's like a river. Is I'm not going to allow your stuff to come over. The river is going to catch it and take it downstream for someone else to deal with because it's definitely not mine to deal with.
I
And so
like
I
that.
just keep on coming up with different practices to help myself, but also others who just, yeah, how do you not allow someone else's story to upheave yours or like you become the main character of their story? Wait, what? What's happening here?
No, that is a very strong perspective, and I think that's a really good way to look at things so that you can get out of your head a little bit and then seeing, okay, I may not yes, I am the problem because I'm allowing this to happen, but also am I really is everything my fault?
Yeah, agreed.
Now, we talked a lot about stress already, but what is one self-regulating tip that you've done that has helped you in your personal life to manage your own stress?
Honestly, I think the biggest is just giving myself at least 5 minutes a day if I can. Most days I give myself well over that, but that's where I started. I felt like I couldn't even give myself 5 minutes a day to take care of myself with intentional focus. And I say that because I would always go for a run and do certain activities. I would cook right. I would make sure I drinking the water, hydrating myself properly. But there wasn't like that intention and that focus of what do I need? How am I feeling in this moment? And so I just started with these 5 to 10 minute stretches that are really focused on your hips and your back and like how you carry stress. So they were like yoga classes that were like 10 minutes long. And it felt so tiny. And yet within 3 months of doing it repeatedly during the workday, it really did change my experience. It helped regulate. I did it always in the afternoon, like middle of the day, and I could just tell, like, the significant difference. I needed that to recharge and come back down, and then the rest of the afternoon, it was, "Oh, I'm, like, tense again," and paying more and more attention just opened up that ability to pay attention.
That is powerful. And it's just like I said, allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel, be intentional, and really see your surroundings so that it does help.
Yeah, agreed, and I think starting small, I think we said it at the intro, baby steps will take you up the mountain. I really wanted this desire to be this really calm, easygoing, like a type B person, because you were describing, and be that. And it was like a summit. It was like freaking Mount Everest for me at that point. And but taking those small little steps was really important. And so yeah, people can just find 5, 10 minutes and just reflect of how they want to what's going on, how they want to feel, doing something that maybe does bring them joy or just allows them pause in the day is like really it's super helpful.
I really like that. And it's super powerful to do that. It seems so simple, but at the end of the day, it is so powerful and it's very effective.
Yeah. Your body starts to crave it more and more, and that's literally what happened, is started craving it more and more, then I started doing, like, 30-minute yoga classes in the morning or in the afternoon, and I'm like, "What is happening? I'm becoming one of these people," and it's great. It was always there inside me, and I think that's what I love about coaching is, like, all of this is already inside us. It's just a space and a way to pull it out and pause and help you think, "How can you bring this more to life? How can you amplify this, enact it, and I like how you said, give yourself some grace when you don't show up because let's be honest, no one bats 1,000.
No. And then as a coach and as professionals who are in the helping industries, we need to acknowledge that we're not always going to have our shit together 100% of the time.
Oh, God, no.
People sometimes have this stigma, and people tell me, like, you must be the most zen person ever because you're over here helping people with stress, blah, blah, blah. Or I'll get the opposite. How is it that you're a stress coach when you're over here one of the most stressed out persons that I know? And I was just like, You're not always going to be able to take your own advice. Sometimes you do need another person to look outside in and tell you, "Hey, you need to calm down and take your own advice."
Yeah.
Because like you're like we find so it's so easy for us to justify why we are the exception to the rule. That won't happen to me like that. No, that's fine. But I do fall off the wagon every now and then. I start working too hard and I start feeling exhausted. And I'm like, oh, I'm burning myself out. I need to take a break. This is crazy. How did I get to this point? But we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have hiccups. The same way that I can do it, you can do it, our client can do it. And wait, that's why having grace and being like kind to yourself matters.
Yeah. Yeah, getting in the arena, saying, "I'm not gonna win every battle, but I'm gonna be here and we're gonna figure this out together and we'll learn." I think one of the most interesting, stories I've ever heard was learning about a crew that hiked Mount Everest, and I always use this. Anyone who's ever listened to me talk about development knows this story. I was so shocked to learn that you don't just hike up the mountain, but, like, that you go up and then you have to sometimes come down to different base camps, like, there's, I think, 4 or 5 base camps. You have to come back down to then readjust the altitude so your blood in your body can adjust to the new altitude and then go back up. And so in those setbacks and coming back down, you get to learn things in a different way and see the approach from a different angle so that you can then level up even higher the next time. And I think that's also a really exciting thing that we don't that people just I don't think we do a good job celebrating of
Yeah.
we look at setbacks as failures instead of, "Yep, that didn't go so hot. Let's try that again." And what's one thing I can take away from this that now I can bring forward in the new approach, this next approach? And it is really cool to experience setbacks in that storyline versus the failure storyline. Because I'm more willing to try and fail and then try again and fail in a new way and then try again. And then every time it's like, "Oh, I'm getting better and better at this, and I'm having a lot of fun."
I like that. But even where your story just resonated with me too is that sometimes it's even more powerful that you listen to your body and decide, maybe I need to take a step back
Yes.
and go a little bit lower and maybe restart so that I can do better the next time. Because if you're going
Mhm.
and I'll give you a perfect example. I was training for my marathon this past year
Yeah.
and which I just finished. Yay. And I developed shin splints. So it was really painful. And part of me was like, I need to keep going. Still need to like keep training. And what ended up happening is I ended up in the hospital because I overworked my muscle. But at that point, I had to make a decision. Do I keep going in the risk that I will never be able to run again? Or do I have to make the conscious decision of taking a step back, forcing myself to take a 6-week break so that I can let my body recover, so that I can then restart and do better? And it was hard because part of you feels like I'm a failure. I like messed up. I'm no longer like I lost my momentum. I'm never going to get it again. And you start spiraling and spiraling, telling yourself how it's all your fault that you led yourself to do this. But it's not. Sometimes it's a lot stronger and it makes you a better person by realizing that you need to take that forced step back, climb back down the mountain to regulate yourself so that you can make it the whole stride up.
Yep. Acknowledging, like, I can't make it right now. I need some rest. I need to recover and heal. And I'm gonna take what I've learned and push forward the next time. But accepting that kind of setback is really painful because it is your body telling you, like, I literally cannot take another step for you. I was just running yesterday and I got home and it had been, I think, a little longer than a week. And I was actually really proud of my body for how it showed up in the run. And typically I like poo-poo it, like I'm just like Teflon. It's like, "Oh, pfft." And then I was like untying my lace and I was like, you know what? Good job, body. And it was like a thank you, a long gratitude of allowing my body to know I was really happy with how it was showing up after almost 2 weeks of not running. which is also like the opposite of that. It's acknowledging setbacks, but also giving some celebration and praise and pride, which is so interesting. I feel like pride is something that's really hard for me to wear and not being a Teflon. But when you do wear pride, it feels like anything is possible. Again, from a stress management perspective, celebrating the wins, being proud of yourself is what builds that momentum forward to take you back up to the next level.
Yeah. And that is important. Like, you have to be able to acknowledge the things that you have gotten done and like what you have accomplished. And maybe small, maybe big, but you still did something towards it. And just acknowledge that we are conditioned to have a negative bias. We're going to try to seek the negative in any situation that we're in. So, knowing that, try to force yourself to look into the positive. So, this has been such a wonderful conversation. And I can keep probably diving even deeper, but I know that this is going to be like a 7 hour podcast. So, I need to stop. But I'm going to wrap it up with the last question, which is my unicorn question.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what is your unicorn lesson that has been the most valuable lesson that has been taught to you that has shaped your life up to today?
Yeah. It's a good question. And one I could go, I think, pretty big milestones in my life. But the one that kind of sticks out to me right now is this wise old woman concept of really thinking about the future. And I think you hit on it with your marathon story of I want to be able to do this thing in the future. And so it is visualizing how do I want to be at 80, 90, hopefully 100? And what would that wise old woman tell me today? And so it is really sitting with her. And what was really beautiful is recently I've I went to Ireland, which is where most of my family is from. I'm 75% Irish, and I went to the museum and I saw this painting of this beautiful fisherman's wife. And I just sat there and I was like, oh my God, this is my wise old woman. And I just sat there for 20 minutes studying her. And so now I have this really vivid image of what she looks like, in addition to the wisdom that she shares with me. And yeah, when I find myself really stressed, about what I need to do in life, how I need to show up. Next week, I'm going home to take care of my dad who's coming out of surgery. My mom is recovering from a fall, and I'm stressed. I don't know what I'm going to encounter. And every kind of moment I feel like like unhinged from it, I just hold myself back down and think about that wise old woman. Like, how does she want to show up? How does she want to look back at this moment? And that for me is really powerful because it's a connection to my future self. So it's that good combination of present moment to future and making sure I just stay rooted in my values and my strengths.
I love that. And that is such a powerful lesson to really implement into our lives and just to be cognizant about.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that.
Oh, no, thank you so much again for having me. Again, like you, I could talk about burnout, stress, toxic work environments all day, every day. And I know we do with our clients, but thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story.
Of course. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, hire you, or just follow up with you on your journey, how can they do so?
Yes, there's a couple ways. My website, blackbirdlifecoaching.com. You can also email me at Eileen at blackbirdlifecoaching.com. And that's EILEEN. Or on LinkedIn, you can just look up Eileen Murphy on LinkedIn and follow me, and you can get all my contact information that way.
Perfect. And for listeners, don't feel like you have to jot all this down. If you scroll down on the show notes, all of this will be posted on there as well. If you go to my website at rainbowcareercoaching.com, go to the Unicorn Wall of Fame, you'll see Eileen on there, and you'll also have all the links in there as well as a summation of this conversation. And as another reminder, episodes come out every Friday at 7 a.m. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow on in the journey. Thank you so much, Eileen. I really appreciate all of this, and you gave so much wisdom today. And yeah, for listeners, don't forget to use the unicorn lesson that Eileen shared today. And other than that, I hope everybody has an amazing day.
Thank you. Take care.